good afternoon, everybody. You mentioned Point Thompson. I used to joke that was a 2-year negotiation with Exxon, and I used to tell my wife, I'm going back in to negotiate with Exxon, and I'm like, so I got an opportunity to go to the dentist or go back in and negotiate with Exxon for a couple hours, and usually, no offense to dentists, but I was usually much more interested in going to the dentist than doing that. But I also want to thank, Jim. One of the things we were just talking here, one of the things I'm going to talk about is permitting reform and some of the things that we're trying to get done there. One of the highlights, though, that I do brag about, I have no reason to brag, it's just the team, and it's a model for Alaska. I think it's a model for the country. I've actually testified in front of Congress on it, is our OPUMP group, the large project permitting, that I think does a great job. I didn't know that was Jim's brainchild on that, so that's a really good example of where we're actually, I think, doing a lot of things right on permitting. So, well, I really appreciate the opportunity to speak. It's an honor to be in front of this group. To be honest, I really enjoy getting in front of all the different miners throughout the state. It's great history, right? Mining in Alaska is so kind of caught up with Alaska's history itself. And it's just great to be with the group that really represents hard work, creating real value, economic benefits to the state, and perseverance. I've been out on some areas, and I know it takes a lot to bring whether a small mine or a large mine to production, and the perseverance that groups like yours represent is so important to the state. We understand it. We're trying to do something about it. So I got a lot to talk about today. I want to try and cover it pretty quickly. I've never presented a PowerPoint in front of such a gargantuan screen, so this is a little intimidating. Hopefully, yeah, there we go. Hopefully it works here. So as I mentioned, a lot to cover. I do want to hopefully leave a little bit of time for either Q&A or something that I am a big believer in also is, hey, where you see us doing a decent job, that's fine if you want to mention that, but really where you see us needing more course corrections or issues or problems that you've seen with DNR or friendly criticisms, we are very, very open to that always. And one of the things that I've been trying to do that I certainly believe either in this job or in other areas of the DNR commissioner position, whether it's been testifying quite a lot during this legislative session on a number of the governor's initiatives or op-eds or just meetings like this, is give you the sense of optimism that we feel. So certainly Alaska has challenges, but the opportunities that we see far outweigh the challenges. And the reason mostly for that is the huge, great resource wealth that we have here. And people like yourselves who have the ingenuity and the hard work to actually monetize that. So upbeat assessment, certainly, of what's happening in the state. And you see here with a pretty broad overview of what we want to cover. So I'll just get into it right now. So start with an overview. I do want to also recognize, and for those of you who haven't met him yet, I know Ed Fogels has been here. He apologizes. He's on a flight. We're heading back to Anchorage today. But Brent Goodrum, our Director of Mining, Land, and Water. Hopefully everybody here has met Brent. He's doing I would tell you, a fantastic job. I'll tell you a funny story. When I had kind of moved around some of the directors in DNR, had a little leeway to bring in some of my own team members and had the opportunity to present Brent and the new head of oil and gas, parks, all at one event. There was some press there, and so when I introduced Brent, I said, so our new, let me start by introducing our Director of Mining, Land, and Water, and let me start by saying something that might shock you. He's the new Director of Mining, Land, and Water. He doesn't know anything about mining, land, or water, which was true at the time, but he knows how to lead. He knows how to take organizations, career Marine infantry and recon officer, and I think you can learn a lot, but sometimes it's hard to learn about leadership and how to move things and how to get things done So hopefully you're seeing some of that, and he's been a critical member of the team. So I'm just going to go through these slides relatively quickly here, but you see a little bit about DNR, and we have a big mission because we have a lot of responsibilities, whether it's as the land manager, regulator, access, making sure we're allowing access. But we also see it's very important to be a partner and an organization focused on customer service too. And I don't think we've always been that great in that realm, and we're trying to do a better job of that. And so you'll see here, though, that we have literally looked around the world, and it's not much of an exaggeration to say, given how big Alaska is, given its resource base, which I'll touch on here in a minute, we manage one of the largest portfolios of oil, gas, minerals, land, water, timber, and renewables in the world. Not many other countries that have more than us. And so it's something that it's an honor to have that responsibility, and if we're not hitting the mark on all the areas, please let us know. And I know this group isn't shy about letting us know either. So this just gives you a little bit of a sense of what we do manage. This is some of the oil and gas issues and numbers. And one of the things that I like to point out here that surprises a lot of people, still really relatively unexplored. That's in minerals and that's in oil and gas, right? You look at that, not many wells at all, exploration wells have been drilled. And then in the oil and gas realm, we are literally just scratching the surface on this, the unconventionals. And I think the potential for Alaska, and a lot of people think this, is enormous in this realm. And even our conventional numbers are huge, right? These numbers are still some of the biggest numbers on Earth. So huge potential there. And of course, for this group, very, very big potential here. This was something I had asked my team to do about 2 years ago. These numbers fluctuate a little bit. If you've seen this chart before, some of the numbers have changed. But I said, look, let's look. What are we managing here in terms of minerals? And if we were our own country, which I know many of you wouldn't mind that being the case, but where would we rank if we were in terms of estimates for some of these key minerals? And you'll see here, literally, we are in the top 10 in the world. If Alaska were its own country, these are estimates on some of these most important minerals in the world. So we're just scratching the surface, and of course we're also focused quite a lot on rare earth elements as well. So in terms of kind of a macro view, and you guys are more familiar with this than I am, on where we are, kind of the last couple years with regard to mining activity, I think the numbers speak for themselves. But the trends are very positive. And this slide actually surprises a lot of people. I think if you asked the average American or average Alaskan how many large-scale mines are in Alaska, they would think it's a little bit like Arizona or Utah or Nevada, where these places where there's dozens. Well, that's it. That's it. 7. And now, what's impressive, though, is the value that that's bringing in terms of exports. The last 2 years you see, or the last year, very, very strong value on an upward scale. And then you guys know this better than I do, but I think this is such an important element, is because a lot of Alaskans aren't aware, is the jobs element of the mining sector and the very high wages. So I think the average wage in the sector here is about $80,000 to $100,000. So just a huge economic impact to wherever these different mines are located. You also see what also the last 2 years has been very positive news is really an exploration boom. Doesn't get a lot of press, but really kind of a boom in exploration investment. You look here on this slide, the last 2 years, 2011 and 2010, those are the last 2 years we have numbers on. 1/3 of all exploration investment in the United States occurred here. And a lot of people say, well, that's just the big giant projects, Pebble, Donlin. And those are big, of course, but actually, if you look at this bullet, so this was in 2011 and 2010, over 30 exploration projects spent more than $1 million. So it's not just the big ones. It's pretty broad, it's pretty diverse. And again, if you're out in the rural communities, I happen to get out there a lot in the summer, boy, you see the impact on the economies, on the service sector, on the small airline companies that these exploration plays are having. So we think it's positive, and again, second year in a row where Alaska's been leading on that. So what I really wanted to talk about today, kind of the meat of the presentation, is our strategy to our strategic and critical minerals strategy. So I know this group has seen this. This is the strategy. We rolled this out. The governor rolled this out about a year and a half ago in Fairbanks at our first strategic and critical minerals summit. And I just want to I'm not going to go through all of it. You can take a look, read it for yourself. But I do want to mention something that I think is how we've been thinking about this. We put a lot of thought and effort into this, but one of the things that I think, at least in my experience, government can be very good at kind of the fanfare. Hey, here's our big strategy. You know, bells ringing, gongs gonging, big announcements, right? And no offense to maybe people who really like them, but you know, if you watched or read about President Obama's State of the Union the other night, I mean, holy camole, there's a million new initiatives and a million new ideas and projects and gazillions of spending. And government's good at that. What government, in my view, is not so good at is doing this and then the kind of hard blocking and tackling of implementing this kind of stuff, because it's boring and it's tedious and you need to focus. So what we've been trying to do, once this was launched by the governor, is implement every aspect of this. So what I wanted to do was provide you an update of how we're implementing it, because this is kind of the roadmap on the mineral side. We think it's a very good one, but we also need to make sure we're keeping our eye on the ball and focusing on it. So let me go through each of these in a little bit more detail. I know you had our DGGS guys, Rod Kombleck, brief on this, but this is something, again, and most of this, by the way, really strong bipartisan legislative support for this program. But probably the most important element of this is our statewide strategic and critical mineral survey. Almost $3 million from the state to do this over the next 3 years. We have been out there and we have been working this, as you can see with these numbers in Rod's briefing, second year in a row, and it's going really good. The idea is bring our expertise, have the U.S. Geological Survey help us, but this is still one of the largest statewide assessments in the country, and then publish the findings to help more exploration, more responsible development. So we're very focused on this. This is kind of a little update on it, but one of the things that I've learned in this whole thing is you can talk about the most modern high-tech ways to look for minerals and assess the land, whether it's LIDAR, whether it's the geophysical surveys from the sky, from different aircraft platforms. But at the end of the day, you got to get out on the ground, boots on the ground, and this is some examples of what we've been doing. This is a team. This guy, if you look there, looks extremely clueless. That would be me. On the ground with our team, but it was great to see what they're actually doing, because as you guys know, these guys are locked and loaded. We had a team that got, in the summer, got caught up on a mountain top 3 days in Whittier. It was snowing on them. It was kind of crazy. We had to go send a rescue team to go get them. So, you know, this is the boots on the ground assessment that our team is doing. We think they're doing a great job. Hopefully you're seeing some of the work, and this is some of the future work that statewide assessment is going to be working on. So that's part one, and I think that's really critical. It's going well. And again, our Bob Swenson, I'm sure most of you know, the head geologist for the state. You know, if there are ideas, if there's input, coordination with you on this, we would welcome it. So part two is focusing on partnerships and infrastructure. I don't get into too much of this, but if you do take a look at what's in the governor's budget, particularly on the road to resources issues, whether it's the road to Ambler, other areas, Umiat, there's been a lot of focus on these issues with regard to making this part, because we know it's critical, the infrastructure to actually get out in some of the different parts of the state is critical, and it's an area where DOT obviously has the lead, but we're also moving forward on that. The third part of this, of our comprehensive strategy is on permitting reform. And I think Randy Raro last night in his remarks kind of updated you on this, which is in many ways quite a sad story. But we recognize, and sometimes on permitting you can talk about it, permitting reform sounds so boring, eyes start to glaze over, but we've seen this as absolutely critical, not only for strategic and critical minerals, oil and gas development, really across the state. And so you see here some of the problems, right? This is probably one of the most depressing reports as an American you can read if you're interested at all in the health of our economy. This is what Randy talked about. This is this annual investment bank based in Canada, Bear Dolbear. They do this ranking of countries with minerals, the big mineral countries, and I don't know if this is good news or bad news. Last year we were ranked dead last in terms of time it takes to permit a large mine. This is before you even start, 7 to 10 years. This year we're tied with Papua New Guinea for dead last. So I don't know if that means we moved up one level and tied with them, or that's kind of a joke. But anyways, it's not good news. And obviously, this part of the state, we've seen our own example of that kind of permitting delays. You know, when I was Attorney General, one of my proudest days was the Hail Mary pass that the Supreme Court caught in the end zone last second. On that case, reverse in the Ninth Circuit, which was great news for the state. But it's also important to take a look at, you know, where our peers are, right? Australia, Canada, they don't do 7 to 10 years, and they still protect their environment. So it's something that, as a country, we certainly need to work on. This next slide is something that doesn't come up much, but I've testified in front of Congress on this a number of times. The idea that, hey, we have these permitting delays, somehow it's helping the environment. From our perspective, if you look globally, what this doesn't help anything. Because what it does, it gets investors, whether it's oil and gas or mining, to say, look, I'm leaving. I can't wait for 8 or 9 or 10 years. So I'm going to go to, name the country, you know, the Congo, Russia, somewhere like that, where the standards on the global, on environmental protection are way, way lower than ours. So you're actually forcing investment into places that don't have nearly the standards that we do. We don't think that's helping the global environment at all. So it undermines even that. It certainly undermines jobs, undermines development. So what we've been trying to do, at least in the state, is focus on revamping, modernizing our system, make it more timely, more certain, more efficient, not cutting corners, but just looking at ways to bring efficiencies. And so this is a number of the areas that we've been focused on. I won't go through each of these, but again, this is part of our permitting strategy that we've been working really hard. I do want to, again, point out Brent's leadership on this because he's done a fantastic job. So in the last 2 years, we've been really focused on this. The legislature, again, has been really strong bipartisan support. So one of the first things we got was a significant uptick in funding for mining, land, and water to help bring on more people to do permits and to help modernize our IT system. And so this was a very important component of a broader strategy. We are starting to really get good progress, again, Brent's leadership on this permitting backlog. This was, so I've been on this job just about 2 years now, and when Governor Parnell asked me to move from being AG to DNR commissioner, I was certainly honored that he wanted me to do that. And but early on, you start asking questions about, hey, talking to people, how's it going? And I kept hearing about these permit backlogs and, delays. And So I finally asked one of my senior guys, I said, do we have a backlog of permits here? It sounds like this is some kind of secret that maybe nobody wants to talk about, like your great uncle up in the attic or something. And yeah, we do have a backlog, a permit backlog. How big is it? It's 2,600 permits, which I don't know about you, but I was just like, you got to be kidding me, right? I was thinking about maybe going, well, maybe, Governor, you know that job you offered me? Maybe I'm not so sure about. But I don't know about you, but to me that number is just off the charts, right? That's choking private sector activity, jobs, investment. So we came clean, talked about it, came to the legislature, said, boy, we got a problem, we're going to try and fix it. It's not going to be fixed overnight. But we are fixing it. If you can see here, this is in 18 months, right? And again, Brent's team has done a great job on this. But we've also been focused on looking at regulatory and legislative changes. And these are not all kind of, there's no silver bullet here. What we're trying to do is smaller changes to make our system more efficient, not cut corners, but just bring in efficiencies. And again, last year, this bill, HB 361, was the beginning of this. Strong bipartisan support. And then we have another bill that is literally before the legislature right now. Bigger effort, taking on some bigger issues. We introduced it. It was governor's bill right up front. And you see some of the things that this bill, this is HB 77 or SB 26. I think it's moving forward pretty well. We've all been testifying on it over the last couple months. And then this is also part of that effort. This is a huge deal. This is HB 78 and SB 27, which is the primacy issue with regard to wetland permitting. So when you get primacy, and I'm sure most of you are aware of it, that's when the state has the opportunity to take over federal permitting with regard to certain federal acts, Clean Air, Clean Water Act. So the standards remain the same. But what it enables you to do, it enables you to have the state control its own destiny more because we make the decisions, we staff the projects, we staff the permitting. Now this takes some time, right? So this is the initial bill to start the primacy transfer on Clean Water Act wetlands issues. We have already done this on Clean Air, and we've done it on certain elements of the Clean Water Act. So this will take several years, but we think it's a very important issue, and I'm sure you've seen it because when we do deal, particularly on wetlands issues, with the Corps or other federal agencies, it can take years, literally years. And so that's another element of the permitting reform that we think is very important. The fourth part of this strategy has been focused on partnerships. And you know, that's a term that's used a lot, but we actually believe that it's very important, whether it's with the university, UAF, boy, they've been collaborating with us, other agencies like Commerce, really strong, tight relationship between the U.S. Geological Survey and our DGGS team, which we think is important. And one of the things that I've been particularly trying to do is really reach out to different companies, but particularly our regional corporations, native corporations, because we think the interests are very closely aligned to what we're trying to do, what they're trying to get done. So, and then finally, and hopefully some of you have seen this, we have been very, very aggressive, and I can tell you this because a lot of us have been part of this, but on getting the word out on Alaska, trying to get new investors up here, talking about the state, talking about opportunities. And one of the ways we've done this is by launching our strategic and critical minerals summits that we've held in Fairbanks. Any folks attended one or two of those? Or so hopefully you've seen those as quite energetic. Both of them have sold out. This was the first one. The governor's there. That's when he announced the big strategy. But, you know, we had press from all over the world covering it. It was really kind of beyond our expectations, right? We sold it out. It was at the Princess. And then last year's, same thing. Sold it out. It was more focused. First one was more policy, government issues. This is more kind of private sector focused. And, you know, again, 250 plus folks, literally Japanese investors, German government officials, investors from all over the country. And as I noted to someone, it was end of November, 30 below zero in Fairbanks. So obviously something's going on, right? If we get people from all over the world, I mean, I love Fairbanks, but there were people there because they're interested in Alaska. And so it was exciting. And so not only we've been doing that, this is just the agenda. By the way, we're making this an annual in the fall in Fairbanks. We really want to kind of put this on the map. So if you haven't been, I honestly really think everybody who goes thinks it's worth their while. A lot of kind of conversations in the hallways, deal work that we were hoping was going on and encouraging. But if you look at here, it was really an all-star cast of Alaskans and people from outside, industry specialists. And then we've also been, hitting the road. So both in the lower 48, China, Korea, Japan, Canada, promoting what's going on here, looking for responsible resource development investors, and we're going to continue to do that. And wherever we can speak about the opportunities here, we're going to continue to do that. And hopefully, you're seeing some of those companies and investors that we've been pitching to come on up to Alaska as either partners or development in their own right. So. Just wanted to end with a few other issues for 2013. You might be familiar with these. These were Senator Giesel, who's introduced both of these pieces of legislation, which we think are important. So my understanding is those are moving well. This is an issue that I could probably spend 3 hours on. I know we don't have 3 hours, but it's something that, as Attorney General, I had to deal with a lot. And even just 2 weeks ago, the current Attorney General and myself testified in front of the Senate on a broad array of these issues. But it's our frustration that we've seen kind of a troubling trend of federal overreach issues that kind of fall into three general categories, kind of the big overreach issues, right? One example was the critical habitat for polar bears on the North Slope when the polar bear was listed. It was the largest critical habitat in the history of the world, bigger than California, and we had zero input on it. They didn't even tell us they were thinking about doing that. I mean, we knew they were thinking about doing it, but they didn't come to us. So just the huge kind of almost breathtaking in some ways overreach that we've seen. Delays, which is also a way to kill projects. And we've seen, that's a whole list here. And then this one, in many ways, is perhaps the most frustrating, the lack on big issues, big decisions that we see related to Alaska where we're not asked, or even though we're, one of the things they say, we do stakeholder outreach. My response typically on that has been, hey, we're not just another stakeholder, right? We're the other sovereign. We're the other sovereign that's named in the United States Constitution. So let's not make it so you touch base with us and all the other groups. We are not even first among equals. We're in a whole different category. And we have the experts, right? We have some of the world's experts on all of these big issues. And it's our citizens. So you need to consult with us. And on a lot of these, unfortunately, we didn't get consulted on some at all. This NPRA wildlands, not a clue. Matter of fact, I was having a meeting with a Department of Interior official, senior, talking about, hey, the need to consult, hey, we got to work together, we got to partner, these are big issues. You guys got to let us know when you're thinking about new policy, prescriptions. 12 hours later, the Secretary of Interior announces that. I was like, wow, that was a real worthless meeting, wasn't it? If you look at the mining sector, okay, a lot of these, this certainly relates to mining. This relates to mining. That's Usabelli. But that's happening all over the country. This Office of Surface Mining redoing their coal leases, shutting down coal mines in West Virginia that were already permitted. Kind of incredible. Kensington, of course. Oh, wetlands mitigation. I know that's a big issue with some of you. So what we've been doing, and again, I won't go into it too much, but we've been looking at this in a variety of ways with a variety of approaches. Our first approach is, by the way, this one. Working cooperatively, explaining ourselves, hey, come on. And, you know, we do have good relationships. There's a new colonel in charge of the Corps of Engineers here in Alaska. We've struck up a really good relationship with him. But, you know, we've monitor, advocate, building alliances. That's another one. You know, these issues, a lot of times in Alaska you think, oh, we're kind of alone up here with our relationship with the feds. These are happening really all over the country, these issues. And so, and then, you know, if we have to, we either join or initiate litigation. And, you know, I think sometimes in the press, hey, you guys haven't been successful. We haven't been successful in all of it, but we've been successful in some, certainly. Kensington Mine is probably the biggest home run, most important for this community. But we even had a federal court just 3 weeks ago completely vacate that entire critical habitat area that I was talking about with polar bear. Not just say, do it over, just vacated it. You guys are completely wrong. And one of the reasons the court did it, you didn't consult with the state of Alaska. So at least we're seeing in the courts that, you know, some of our concerns, but again, we would like it this way, but we're not always getting that. So stay tuned. I mean, again, I could talk about this for hours, but it's a huge issue. It's a big issue for this industry as well as others. And then finally, the last time I had the opportunity to talk down here, I did talk about we have responsibilities as a state. We certainly recognize those. We take them seriously, but we also believe that industry has responsibilities. And I think it's important to, you know, these are things that all of you are certainly aware of, but it's important from our perspective to remind all of us on these issues, whether it's environmental stewardship, safety, Alaska Hire, which the vast majority of the companies do. Some, you know, I was talking to the manager at Donlin, who are moving into the permitting stage, which is exciting, but, you know, really strong record of doing this kind of stuff and training. And I think in some ways it makes good business sense as much as it does good citizenship. So try to cover a lot, and certainly appreciate the patience. We think there's a lot of good things happening, and keeping that positive outlook, strong partnership, and maintaining the high standards that we have here we think is critical. And look forward to any questions or criticisms or suggestions that you guys have going forward. So thank you very much.